Wah, hey. Pura vida, mi gente. Pure life. Much love, much respect. Thank you for tuning in once again. Appreciate you guys. Shout out to everybody in the live chat. Shout out to all the family. Mystery Plus, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. We're gonna get right to the point. Oh man, it's been a while, right? Since we talked about this, so I'm just like very uncomfortable not continuing and mentioning it a little bit. Like history is happening right in front of us, and unfortunately, it's a bad history. But the thing about history is we're supposed to learn from it. When we don't learn from history, we're doomed to keep repeating it. All right, so that's the main thing about this, and also it's not about sides, it's about humanity. All right, just like the whole immigration thing, it's not about Trump versus Democrats or Republicans versus Democrats. It's about humanity. Okay, so so back in when was it? Like February, March, April. Okay, so in February, I got this email from YouTube, right? Real quick. I just want you guys to see. They removed a video of mine, right? It was number 24. Don't mention the hazars. So that's literally was a it was a trailer. It was a trailer for my video on Patreon. This video is not even on YouTube. This was just a trailer, and it was just some two people talking. They didn't show anything, and so they said what we found. They said it's hate speech, right? So they gave me a hate strike. That was my first time receiving some kind of hate strike. I just want you guys to see how real this is. And that's why I haven't done a thing. And I had to, that whole series, I already had moved it to Patreon. We did at least another 10, 12 parts additional from what I have on YouTube. And we continue that on Patreon. How this impacts you. So they gave me like this strike that I had to wait 3 months. I had to take this, I had to take this hate course, right? And just hit yes, 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 acknowledge, all this all this stuff that I didn't even do, right? And anybody that sees that trailer would have agreed. There's nothing there. It's just, I mean, out of all my videos, you can pick so many, probably you can try to get something, but that one definitely didn't have anything. You know what I mean? So I had to wait till May. It says until they remove the thing, and I had to do the course. If not, I would receive another. They try to trying to take the channel down, all this other stuff, right? So I just want you guys to understand. Okay, just want you guys to understand, right? Okay. Hey, G Play, appreciate you. Thank you. Wow. Okay. So today we're just gonna be doing like a little podcast and just go over some stuff. Everybody's what I'm seeing stuff pop up. I see all this stuff pop up all the time, and it's just like I've been wanting to talk about it. I just whatever. Let them talk about it. So first of all, right before we talk about OCT 7, I'm using abbreviated. That's a month I'm talking about. OCT 7th, okay? OCT, before OCT 7th, we had the Nakba, 1948. All right. We're gonna let John Mearsheimer sign I'm not even gonna you guys read the title, right? This is from Katie Halper's YouTube channel. Shout out to Katie for having John Mearsheimer. If you like her, subscribe, make sure to like the video, and we'll check out all the other videos as well. This just popped up. I was just literally just doing this today. So, let me just do this. So let's see.
Interesting what you said. I've heard a lot of people say this, that, they used to support Israel and now they don't. But how much of what Israel is doing now is a departure from the way they used to be versus how much is it that we just see it on social media? I mean, because Israel was founded, right, through, even Benny Morris admits, he doesn't use the word, but ethnic cleansing or transfer, as he admits, as he calls it. How much has Israel changed versus how much we've just seen it for what it is?
I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you.
Yeah. You know what, guys? I actually forgot. I was gonna say hi to you guys. Hold on, guys. All right, hold on. What's that? All right. So today we got the, you know, secret agent over here. Shout out to everybody in the live chat. Guys, please don't mention the Chazars. If you are, say Chazar. You know what I mean? Don't mention. We're trying to make sure but we got protection. We on that dragon warrior. We're on that dragon warrior, dragon jaguar chi energy. You know what I mean? Love, humanity, Dracan, priest, king stuff. That's what we on. What's up, everybody? What's up? All right. Don't mind me. Don't worry about who I am. Listen to what's being said. Wow. Yeah. All right. So she asked him a question, right? I don't really know her. We're gonna see several different discussions, right?
In good part, but not completely. There's no question that from the beginning, the Zionists who came to Palestine understood that there was going to have to be massive ethnic cleansing for purposes of creating a Jewish state. There's no way that Zionists coming out of Europe and landing in Palestine, where there is a large population of Palestinians, can create a Jewish state without doing significant ethnic cleansing. And of course, they cleansed or transferred. Transfer was the word back then. They transferred about 750,000 Palestinians in 1948, many of whom, by the way, went to Gaza.
Okay, so when the state of Chazar was established, right? 1948, we ain't talking about OCT 7. We're talking about way back 1948. They displaced, forced relocated. He's leaving now, like murdered, forced relocated 750,000 people, 800, almost 800,000 people. A lot of them ended up in Gaza. That's what he's saying. That was its own little concentration camp. It was just a big city concentration camp. That's where they were stuck. That's it.
And many of these people fighting today are descendants of those people who were pushed out in 1948. And then the second big cleansing was mainly in the West Bank after the 1967 war. And there's no question that what the Israelis did, especially in 48, was absolutely horrific. And there's also no question that we didn't know much about it in the West. And furthermore, the Israelis were able to purvey this story that the Arab armies, which went to war against Israel shortly after it declared its independence, this is, I believe, May 14th, 1948. The Israelis declare their independence, and Israel then ends up in a war with a number of Arab armies. And the story that we were told when I was young was that the reason the Palestinians left was not because they were cleansed, but because these Arab armies told them to leave. They were going to come in, they would kill all the Israelis or all the Zionists or all the Jews. And once they were done killing them, throwing them into the sea, the Palestinians could come back to their house or to their houses.
Right.
This story is completely false. There's no evidence to support it. The Israelis cleansed Gaza. And what's happened is we have figured all of this out with the passage of time. Just very quickly, if I can tell you sort of what I think is the series of events that changed not only my thinking, but all sorts of people's thinking about Israel. and undermined this Exodus story that was so firmly entrenched in people's minds a long time ago. The first big event is the Israeli invasion of Lebanon in 1982. That was heavily covered in the media. And here you see the importance of the media. This gets back to the very important point you were making, especially about social media today. But the media began to cover things in a big way in 1982 in ways that it didn't in 1948. And we saw what was happening. And it was a terrible picture. And of course, the massacres in Sabra and Shatila did enormous damage to Israel's reputation. Then in the late 1980s, the new historians came along. You mentioned Benny Morris's name, but Ilan Pappé was another prominent figure. Avi Shlaim was another prominent figure. And there were a number of other people as well. And they got access to the Israeli archives. And they told the story about what really happened in 1948. They told you how Israel was created. And they not only told you what happened in 1948, they took you back to the early 20th century and told you how people like Ben-Gurion thought about what was necessary to create a Jewish state in a sea of Arabs. And what's very important to understand here is that once you heard the explanation that people like Morris and people like Schleim and Pape were providing, you understood that it made perfect sense, right? You understood that the Israelis or the Zionists had to do terrible things to create a Jewish state. It was just unavoidable. So from a logical point of view and from an empirical point of view, or from the historical record, you began to see what was really going on in terms of how Israel was created. And third thing you want to keep in mind is you had the first Intifada in 1987. This is the first big public uprising. Again, this is when you have a lot of news coverage. And then in the 90s, the situation began to move back in the other direction because of the Oslo peace process. But that all failed. And then you had the second Intifada. And after the second Intifada and more historical work being done on Israel, especially by Arab and Palestinian scholars. This is another very important part of the change that took place since I was a young man, if not young boy. In those days, it was basically white people who, Europeans and Americans who created the discourse about Israel. And most of those people were super friendly to Israel. They were pro-Israel. That world has gone away. You now have lots of people like Rashid Halidi, right, who can tell a very different story. And I want to be very clear here. It's not just Rashid Halidi. It's also the fact that you have lots of Israelis, lots of American Jews, lots of American non-Jews who are telling the same story that Rashid Halidi is telling. Yeah. Right? There are different twists on all these stories that these people tell, but the same basic story is being told. And now, today, we have alternative media. And you and I talking here is a perfect example of this. You couldn't do this in 1982. You couldn't even do it in 2000, at the time of Camp David, right? When Bill Clinton and Ehud Barak and Yasser Arafat were at Camp David in late 2000 trying to negotiate a settlement. You had no alternative media. You had to depend on the New York Times and CBS and NBC. And of course, what you got was very slanted. You didn't get a critical eye looking at what was going on. Now you have, people like people like Aaron, people like Max Blumenthal, just all sorts of people, Chaz Freeman, me, Steve Walton, so forth and so on. We're all out there, opining on these events. And the discourse has just changed drastically. And it's very hard for Israel's defenders to deceive us. And we're making it very hard for them to deceive, middle America or middle Germany or middle France, right? So the whole discourse has just changed in fundamental ways, and it is not advantageous to Israel.
Although what's frustrating is that we've seen public opinion shift but public policy has not caught up with it.
The lobby operates at two levels. When Steve and I wrote our book, this is one of the first things that we figured out. The lobby is deeply interested in controlling the discourse as much as it can, because controlling the discourse is related to public opinion, what the people in the body politic think. And that's where they've lost out in recent years. That's what we were just talking about. But they care more about the elite level. And there they continue to be wildly successful. It's really quite remarkable. And we'll see this on display on June 24th when Benjamin Netanyahu comes to talk to Congress. I think the only interesting question is how many standing ovations will he get? And what you see is that the lobby continues to maintain tremendous influence on the legislative branch.
Yep.
And on the executive branch.
Yep.
And that hasn't changed. And the interesting question moving forward, as I'm sure you recognize, is whether or not all of this change down below will have an impact up on top.
Because we were blessed with so much time with Professor Mearsheimer, some of this will be Patreon only. So to see the full stream with...
All right, guys. So that was him basically, so that's what I'm saying. So there's a whole story before OCT 7, all right? There's a whole story before OCT 7. Now, another thing I'd like to remind everybody is, excuse me. Okay, so, I mean, I've shown clips of this already in my Chaser videos, guys, a series that I have, I get a lot deeper and so that's why, get right to the point, but I'm trying to make sure we can stay up, right? Like, and again, these are other channels that have their videos published, right? They got, look, 617,000 views. We're gonna go to the Jimmy Dore show. Shout out to Jimmy Dore for pointing this out and showing this to his followers. If you like his channel, go ahead and subscribe. I'm gonna hit like on this video. Yeah, I gotta watch all the rest too. I gotta catch up. I really, I'm not too familiar. I don't follow too many people. I'm always doing my thing. So, says why all, this is the title, right? You guys see the title, right? I'm not going to repeat it. Okay.
Friend Richard Medhurst found out something pretty interesting. And most of the prime ministers of Israel changed their name because they didn't sound Middle Eastern enough. You think I'm kidding? Let's watch a little bit of this.
I show you what I'm about to show you, your mind will be blown. You're going to be blindsided. Every single Israeli prime minister has a fake name. Did you know that? I was just talking about Ben Gurion. Do you know what his original name is? It's Gruen. Gruen. He changed it to make it sound more Jewish and sound more Middle Eastern. Do you know what Netanyahu's real name is? It's not Netanyahu, it's Milkovsky.
Mm-hmm.
I swear to God, go and look it up. You'll find Milkovsky. That's his real name. These are, remember what Israelis are. Israelis are European Jews. They don't come from Palestine, but they want you to make you believe. They want to make believe and make you believe that they come from this area, that they are indigenous to the land, that they're so Jewish, right? Even though they have no connection. So they changed their names. Here's another one. Moshe Sharat. His name is Chertok originally. You've got Levi Eshkol. Eshkol was Shklonik. So he changed it from Shklonik to Eshkol. Then you have Yigal Alon. His original name, Peikovitz. Golda Meir, Israel's first female prime minister. Her real name is not Golda Meir. It's Mabovich. Mabovich.
Golda my ass.
More like mad bitch. We have Yitzhak Rabin, right? His name is not Rabin. It's Rubitsov. Are you seeing the pattern? These are Eastern European names. Not Palestinian, not Jewish, not Middle Eastern. They're Eastern European, okay? They're not Palestinian. They don't come from this region. Yitzhak Shamir. He's a great one. Yitzhak Shamir, he's on the wanted poster because he was wanted by the British police in Palestine for terrorism. But they don't tell you that. So Yitzhak Shamir, his original name is Yezernitsky. Yezernitsky. Shimon Peres, Persky. Netanyahu, I already told you, Malikovsky. I think I said Milkovsky, excuse me. It's Malikovsky. Never, it's the same point. Ehud Barak is Brog. So B-R-O-G. Brog. He changed it to Barak. Oh. Ariel Sharon. His original name is Shinerman. Shinerman. He changed it to Sharon. And Yair Lapid, who's you still see him changing posts, his original name is Lampel. So he changed it from Lampel to Lapid.
So let me bring in George Galloway. Now, you know something about this, and you also know something about the creation of the Israeli state. And, people say, well, it came from the Balfour Declaration. And people use that to justify the Israeli state. Could you talk about why that's not a justification?
Well, hardly. It was the first and I think the only instance in history when one people granted to a second people the land that belonged to a third people. And in the era of colonialism, we didn't even possess it as a colony at the time. It was a part of the Ottoman Empire. It was not ours to give away, but we gave it away to a group of European colonial Jews. They never made any secret of that. They met in Basel in the late 19th century, but they met many times in the United States, in Baltimore and many other places. The newspaper headlines are extant in which they describe themselves as a Jewish colonial movement. And they were begging the British Empire to give them somewhere, anywhere, that they could found their Zionist settler state in. And they were in advanced talks with the British Empire about Uganda, about the Seychelles. They negotiated very seriously to have their state in Argentina, in Patagonia. That would have given rise to a different kind of PLO in the years to come. They were ready to found their settler state everywhere. They saw these white Europeans building settler colonial states in Australia, in Canada, in South Africa, Rhodesia, and so on. They wanted a piece of the action. It was only later that they invented ex post facto a religious justification for building their state in Palestine. As a matter of fact, all the leaders of the early Zionist movement were atheists. They didn't believe in God, but they believed that God gave them Palestine. It's a monstrous fabrication that a moment's study, 25 minutes of study will give you the whole antecedent of this thing.
25 minutes of simple studying, you would find out the history. We're just talking about the history, not the propaganda, not what they want you to believe. You gotta do your own independent studies. So again, fair use, right? These are all videos that are up, big channels. I don't know if they got a strike or whatever for these. All right, we should be okay, right?
So they arrived in a country which already had people living in it. It was called Palestine. The people living in it were Palestinians. They were mainly Muslim, but a very substantial number were Christian. And there were even a considerable number of Jews who had always lived there, who had never been scattered across the world and then hunted by pogrom and witch hunt. The Jews in Palestine lived in amity with the Christians and Muslims there. Suddenly, millions of European Jews that neither the United States nor Europe wanted to take. These were people straight out of the Holocaust. But the doors of the United States and Great Britain and France were slammed shut in their faces, and they were told to go to Palestine. And they took other people's land, other people's houses, other people's farms, orchards, and the people who owned these properties and lived there for millennia were turned into refugees over a very short period of time. In the end, almost 1 million of them were driven out of the country altogether, and the remainder became second, third-class citizens in their own country, living in refugee camps.
Okay.
So in a place like Jenin, for example, you'll have heard of it, Jenin, Jenin, there's a big refugee camp there. And from that refugee camp, the inmates of what is effectively a concentration camp can see their own houses being lived in by Jewish people who came from New York, who came from Moscow or London or Paris. They can see people who've just arrived as immigrants picking their oranges off their trees in the gardens of their homes, whilst they live now 3 generations, 4 generations in squalor, regularly visited by extreme violence from settlers and from the Israeli state themselves. It is the reason I've spent 50 years in this cause is not because I set out to do so, but because I went there 50 years ago, and what I saw there affected me so much, I consider it would be a moral betrayal not to speak out about it, not to tell other people about it, so that we might find at least some modicum of justice. This is the very day, Jimmy, in which the Camp David Accords were signed in Washington between Sadat, the Egyptian president, Begin, a former terrorist, Prime Minister of Israel, under the auspices of Jimmy Carter, signed on the lawn of your White House. And that Camp David Accord was supposed to lead to peace and amity and a modicum of justice for the Palestinian people, and an end to Israeli occupation of other people's territories. And of course, none of that has happened. Everything has gotten worse. I've been in this 50 years. This is the worst moment I have experienced. 300 kids in 51 minutes. I mean, that breaks all records.
All right, all right. Hey guys. Yeah. Oof. Okay. Yeah, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. We're just continuing. We're just doing reviews, critiquing, fair use, educational purposes, historical purposes, what's going on, so people have a context, be informed, both sides of it, not just one side of it. All right, like journalists, right? All right. So again, these are big channels. This channel got 781,000 subscribers. I mean, Double Down News, shout out to Double Down News. They got a lot of good videos. I'm gonna like this one. All right, and we're gonna hear this out a little bit. We're gonna have to be careful a little bit with some of the images. We're gonna try to catch them. Yeah, let me just remember. Okay, this one. Okay.
Of beheaded Palestinian babies and children, Palestinian children with severed. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of videos of beheaded Palestinian babies and children, Palestinian children with severed limbs, killed by Israel. And not a single corporate media outlet has reported on how Israel has systematically
okay. Hold on, guys. Yeah. Okay.
Not a single corporate media outlet has reported on how Israel has systematically beheaded Palestinian children on a daily basis for the last 15 months. And yet every single one of these Western media outlets was so quick to spread the mass atrocity propaganda in order to manufacture consent for Israel's genocide by repeating a story about an incident which never took place.
We have some really disturbing new information out of Israel. The Israeli Prime Minister's spokesman just confirmed babies and toddlers were found with their heads decapitated.
Earlier,
so basically she's talking about what were the accusations of OCT7 that happened that day, and eventually when people did investigations and all that, and determined that a lot of what was true and what was not true, what was factual and what was, so a lot of the things they claimed happened were not factual. Okay, and even this guy right here was going with the whole thing. I'm gonna show him what he thinks now. This is 2 years ago, right? I'm gonna show you what he thinks now, right? All of a sudden. So they're over there doing the whole, yeah, they did this, they did that, it's awful, it's awful. Remember, I just showed you this started way before OCT7, all right? OCT7, right? And guys, try to be censored on the chat too. We're trying to do this for educational purpose, not to create hate, all right?
This new revelation about 40 babies being killed.
Oh my God.
And some of them being beheaded. And I was like, how can any human being do that to a baby?
So what message does that send? That mythical beheaded babies, because they were Israeli, are to be reported on when the incident never happened, but that Palestinian babies and children, when they're beheaded and their limbs are severed and they're found hanging from trees with half of their body missing, that they are not worth the coverage to report on their experience, on their...
I'm sorry, guys. I just had to. I couldn't show that, guys. I don't know.
At the hands of Israel and the United States. Did you know that Israeli occupation forces tied explosives to the body of an 80-year-old Palestinian man who was forced to clear booby-trapped houses, and once they released him, they shot and killed him and his wife? Did you know that Israeli soldiers were captured on film raping a Palestinian? Okay. Politicians and soldiers and ordinary people protested outside.
So she's talking about what happened in one of their jails where somebody got violated, a man got violated, by the soldiers, right? Very, very violated, and then when they would try to go, and then the people went crazy when they tried to prosecute them, because they were like, no, they're heroes for what they did, so that's what's going on here, guys. I don't know, like, it gets pretty deep. You guys know, I just wanted to kind of show you. If you want to see the rest of it, I had shared this already. That's the name of the video, okay, from Double Down News. They got deep. They get pretty deep with it, okay. So meanwhile, in these like United Nations meetings and all that, world courts or whatever, the United Nations meetings, the people leaders are putting their opinions on, and and it's like nothing gets done really, So we're on WLA YouTube channel. Hey, if you like it, I'm gonna hit like on this one. And then it says Algeria shocks the world. All right. So right here, first of all, this is the guy representing Palestine. He's literally crying, finishing his speech, literally crying about his people and what's happening, and then it goes on to somebody else. Okay. Okay. Susan, no flags, nothing. I said, really, guys, don't mention them. It's very obvious who they're talking about. The video shows it, please.
unbearable. How could anyone tolerate this sorrow? Excuse me, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, I would like to thank Ms. Sigrid Skag and Dr. Feroz Sidwan for their statements. I want to seize this opportunity to express our support to Mr. Tom Fletcher for his briefing of last week on the suffering of the Palestinian people in Gaza. Mr. President,
Damn, they hated on that. They're gonna put that right now. Oh man.
on the morning of Friday, May 23rd, Dr. Ala al-Najjar left her home for her shift at the Nasser Hospital. She didn't know. She didn't know it will be the last time she said goodbye to 9 of her 10 children. This pediatrician, who had spent her life saving children's lives, became a grieving mother, forced to identify the calcinated remains, the calcinated bodies of her own sons and daughters.
Real story.
The body delivered to the emergency room by her colleagues in the very corridors where she once gave hope to others. Dr. Najjar's children had names. Yahya, Raqan, Raslan, Jubran, Eve, Rifan, Sidin, Luqman, and Sidra. All were killed. The eldest was 12-year-old. The youngest, just 6 months. These are these children.
Damn.
They were not members of a Center for Command and Control of Hamas.
You hear what he said? He's like, they weren't from the command center of Hamas. These are children. These are regular people. This whole time, this is what's been going on over there, guys. Like they tell us one thing on the news, which they finance, right? They own, and you know.
As Dr. Najjar buries her children, this is Dr. Najjar. As Dr. Najjar buries her children, her husband, Hamdi, is still lying in deep coma. And her 10-year son, Adam, critically wounded, is lying in the hospital. We hope he will be surviving. If Hamdi finally awakes, what will she tell him? And when Adam asks about his brothers and sisters, What story can she tell him? President, in another horrifying scene, young Warda Sheikh Khalil, a 6-year-old girl, tried to flee the flames.
All right, they're showing
Tried to flee the flames.
an image of a child being burned, guys, in the flames. Like, they got that on the news and videos. I've seen it. Like, okay, a 6-year-old child. Okay.
The flames engulfing her school, her shelter, after an Israeli airstrike.
Yeah, it's nothing funny though. Like, this ain't LLOL. It's nothing here is funny. Not at all.
This shelter, meant to protect displaced civilians, became a crematory oven. Her mother and siblings were killed. Her father now clings to life. No one in Gaza is spared. Not doctors, not women, not children, and not the displaced. Not even hope itself.
Not even hope. It's safe.
Mr. President, figures lost meaning. What is worth of saying 18,000 children dead? These are not only numbers. These are lives. These are dreams. These are voices, playtimes, lullabies. They were extinguished. They were the warmth of homes, the joy of classrooms. They were the pulse of neighborhood. The Israeli army killed them. They killed them deliberately in a mother's arms, in classrooms, in hospitals, in bread lines under staircases, and in tents. Their deaths were not collateral. They were the consequences of a system that sees Palestinian lives as not human, as disposable.
What's the first thing you do?
Right. So, guys, that's like literally what's happening, you know, like all the time in their meetings, and there's a bunch of them putting them on the spot, showing so many things, and nothing really happens. Nobody's really held accountable, and people are still being, you know, destroyed. So, guys, I know I got I got a lot of new subscribers always, but if this is the first time you hear me live and I say, guys, please catch up on all my videos, they're all connected. I have a whole series on this. This ain't, you know, you guys don't know the whole story like everybody else does. you know, with that series and what I showed in that series. Trust me, way deeper than this. So go ahead and check out my series on this. Don't mention the hazars. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. Don't mention the hazars. All right, you'll find the playlist. And yeah. So even in so opinion has kind of shifted lately, right? In the last couple months, you know, opinions kind of shifting. People are kind of now kind of like a little bit of the humanity's coming in, or I don't know why they want to talk about it now. They feeling guilty, or they feel like maybe they're not safe now because now they got a bad stigma on them or whatever. But even in over there in the state of Chazar, in the state of Chazar, they have like a little split. There's people that are not down with what's going on. Okay, I just want to show a little bit.
This is where the anti-government democracy demonstration takes place. People in this demo are also demonstrating against the war, but mainly in order to bring back the hostages, not mentioning what is happening in Gaza. This is going to march down that street, and we're going to wait for them in one of the... When Israel broke the ceasefire, it killed a few hundred people on the first night. And I posted photos of the children who were massacred that night. And my friend saw it on my profile and she said we should print those photos and bring them out to the demonstration. בבקשה להתקרב. אנחנו פה להעביר מסר ברור שמה שישראל עושה בעזה זה לא בסדר, זה פשע מלחמה. אנחנו פה כדי לזכור את הילדים והילדות שמשלמים בדמם את המחיר ההפקר. We went out, I think, a group of 20 women with these photos, and were very surprised when people were coming up to us and asking us questions. They were asking, who are these kids? What happened to them? And people were genuinely shocked by it, upset by it. And so the next weekend we printed more photos, and over 100 people joined. And then the week after.
So this is like a PG version. Nah, they are actually over there beating up their own people. You guys can find this in so many videos. I just can't, you know, with me, they'll find one little thing and they'll say, oh, let's take this video down. So I just want to show you guys that there's actually, it's like a split going on over there too. There's a split going on when it comes to journalists as well, even people that were kind of like, I don't know, they seem like agents, right? They seem like agents. They seem like agents, but then now they all of a sudden, I don't know if they're being pressured or it's part of the whole, you know, play both sides like they always do, right? Play both sides. Now, now he wants to. Before he was all full, yeah, it's justified, it's justified. And do you condemn, you know, do you condemn? He always asks everybody, do you condemn, you know? You gotta answer. That was his comeback. Now it's a whole different story, right? So guys, again, you must not hear me, you must not watch me a lot if you are waiting for my notification. And I can tell who be on my live chats often and who hasn't, and you know. So guys, I am shadow banned. You cannot wait for my notification. Unfortunately, you gotta actively check my channel. I upload almost every day. Did you get a notification yesterday? Did you get a notification the day before that? I mean, I got videos almost every day. This is what I'm saying. I'm putting in work daily, guys. I'm putting in work daily. You have to actively check on my channel, guys. They won't send you notification all the time. They will unsubscribe you. They'll do all kinds of things. Hey, Nikki, check out my series. Don't mention the chase. All right. Today we're focusing on what I'm showing because this is more like current now. So, you know, like That series got everything. Everything. Trust me. So we're in Piers Morgan Uncensored channel, you know, Piers. But look at this. Look at the title. And we're gonna hear from Finkelstein, pretty active spoken person on this, like very, yeah, he's somebody with a lot of clout too, like he knows what he's talking about. So we're gonna get this, all right? Fair use. Again, this is a very big channel, right? 3.9 million subscribers, Piers Morgan, right? Did he get a strike for, you know, again, we should be okay, right? I'm showing normal things that everybody got on YouTube, right?
These 54 Palestinians were killed in 2 separate Israeli strikes overnight, including on a school which was sheltering displaced families. Israel says they were targeted attacks on a Hamas command center, but it's now undeniable that the civilian death toll from the latest bombardments and blockade is intolerable. The ugly ripples of this increasingly ugly war are still being felt across the whole world. A young couple were shot dead outside a Jewish museum in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday. Both were Israeli embassy staffers. Suspected gunman, Elias Rodriguez, told officers, "I did it for Palestine." There's been a big reaction to what I said last week, with many of Israel's backers attacking me with the same venom that pro-Palestinians tend to do, and they don't like what I have to say the other way around. So let me just be clear again. I don't pick sides. I try to follow the facts and call out extremism on both sides. When facts change, so do my opinions. And if your opinions don't change when facts change, then maybe you're the problem, not me. What is clear to me is that what started as a justified war, Israel's right to defend itself against a horrific terrorist attack, has become something that has crossed any line. And that is why this war has got to end, and it has to end very soon.
All right, so he said something deep right there. He said, hey, you know, I go based on the facts. Maybe we'll give him the benefit that whether he was playing dumb, like he didn't know the whole history of how the Chazar state got created, like we just went over with the 2 gentlemen. You know, if he didn't know, you know, the facts changed. Now, but all of a sudden the facts changed. So he said something deep, like, even with anybody here and watching, like, if the facts, like, if you find out now, like, look, this was actually false and this is what really happened, this is what's been going on, wouldn't your opinion change? That's what he's trying to cover himself, because he was so pro, you know, Chazar last 2 years, man. So, I mean, all his life, but now he's like, uh-oh, my opinion changed.
In a moment, I'll talk to Benny Morris and Norman Finkelstein. But first, 1 year after he spoke to me from a hospital inside Gaza, I'm joined by the American medic, Dr. Mossab Nasser. Well, Dr. Nasser, great to have you back on Uncensored, albeit in even more appalling circumstances than the last time we spoke. Just tell me what it's like there right now in Gaza, what you're hearing, what you're seeing, what the reality is, because international journalists like me aren't allowed in. As I keep berating Prime Minister Netanyahu, if you want people to believe what you're saying about this, let the international journalists in. But they don't. So we're reliant on very scant detail other than people like you who really know.
Well, thank you, Piers, for having me. Again, it's been a year since we've talked. I believe last time was May 2024 when I was actually at the European hospital in Gaza. There was actually recently bombed, and many civilians were killed in that attack. You've asked me how it is in Gaza today. The best example I can tell you, as someone who lives in Texas, is that the Israelis, unfortunately, or the Israeli army treats the Palestinians in Gaza like animals, almost like a the game hunting in a ranch in Texas, where you have these high fenced ranches with exotic animals, where hunters go and chase these animals from one side of the fence to the other and kill these animals. And that's unfortunately how the Israeli army treats the Palestinians in Gaza today, like game. And you can actually see the gratification on their faces when they, hunt a child or a woman or destroy a school or a kindergarten. So it is it's very sad to see that we have reached this reality that at this time in history, people are treated like animals. And, this is what we've heard at the beginning of the war, that Palestinians are human animals, and they have been treated as such for the past almost 2 years now, while the entire world is watching. So probably this is the best example as someone who lives in Texas and sees how hunters go to these ranches to chase game. That's what we see in Gaza today.
You have, I know, huge amounts of family and friends in Gaza. How many have lost their lives? People that are close to you?
Hey, folks, I want to show you something.
Hey, folks.
So far, personally, my entire family is in Gaza. I've lost 74 members so far.
Damn.
One of them was my mother.
Wow.
She died last year, almost a year ago. And I just lost my nephew, who's 20 years old, had a life ahead of him, such a handsome, intelligent, bright young man. Who went, again, like game in Texas, he went to look for food for his family, and he was targeted in an Israeli airstrike and died of shrapnels in the chest and the head. And in fact, he died between his father's arms. He bled to death, and by the time the ambulance arrived to take him to the hospital, he was declared dead. So this is the reality. I mean, so far, 74 members of my family have been lost in this vicious war. And I can tell you, Piers, as a Palestinian, and I lead a humanitarian organization, and we try to be as much as we can neutral and unbiased in our judgment. But we're left with no choice but to speak up. And I can tell you, watching these images coming out of Gaza on a daily basis of children being amputated, malnourished, head injuries, amputations, many are burnt alive. Until last night, we've seen those images coming out of Gaza. I can tell you, show me the gas chambers. Honestly, the death in a gas chamber is 100 times more merciful than being burnt alive in an Israeli fire. That is the reality where we are today. So we are looking at the Holocaust live on 4K screens, and our politicians, our human rights organizations, our celebrities are just watching and feel helpless.
All right, I'm doing this guy so you guys can know, this is the reality. Like he just said it. Alive, I ain't gonna say it. He said it. Alive, being live streamed, right? That's what's going on. A lot of you can avoid it and just click through the videos or your wall on Facebook or whatever you are. Don't worry about it. I got my life here. I'm good, So again, I'm not trying to do this for like comedy or for having fun or, I'm trying to give you a different emotion. I'm trying to get the human out of you, humanity.
I don't know if they endorse it or they can't speak up, but it's time to speak up. You cannot just sit on the sidelines watching this horrific murder take place right in front of our eyes, and then maybe 10 or 100 years from now say, well, we wish we've done something about it. This is the time.
As you know, the Israeli argument has remained that they are on a mission to take out Hamas. They say Hamas continue to operate and live amongst civilian populations, and therefore, as they take out the terrorists, with these strikes, they are inevitably going to kill civilians in the process, but that doesn't make it an unjust or immoral war, that they are defending themselves against a terrorist attack of enormous and horrific scale. And this is the only way that they can dismantle Hamas. What is your response to them?
Again, the OCT thing, it didn't start in OCT 7, okay? It started way before that. All right, if you got here late, you don't know what OCT 7 is, I said it in the beginning, I broke it down. But this happened way before OCT 7, right? That's why he's not Mr. Morgan playing it off or what. He's still doing it. He's still, even though he's trying to sympathize now, you're still adding, we know what happened, OCT-7. That was a culmination of many years of frustration and oppression and murder and all that, genocide and all that, you know, like being real, this, you know, like taken out of your home and all that, like a lot of years living in occupation. Nobody's been doing nothing, you know. What would you guys do? But either way, a lot of the things, like we just said, was exaggerated and it was proven to be wrong. So what are you talking about more? You know, oh, horrific. Yeah, horrific. What? What part? They was, you know, all right, I'm not going into that, but so he just put out a point what a lot of the chasers be saying, you know, but this happened and this happened. So they try to justify what's going on. And he's asking them, what do you think about that?
Piers, I think if that is really the case, that's the most failed military operation in history. You have one of the most sophisticated armies in the world with the most sophisticated technologies. They can go and surgically get to Hamas, you know, terrorists on from Gaza or in Gaza if they want to. But that is not the case. What we see is, you know, deliberate targeting of schools, of homes. You know, my nephew was not a Hamas. He's not even a Hamas sympathizer. He went to look for food and he was killed, along with 24 innocent people like him who were waiting in line to get food for their families. It's a trophy hunt. It has absolutely nothing to do with Hamas today. It is basically an obvious and clear ethnic cleansing, and only someone that lives in denial or someone who's honestly completely crazy would believe otherwise.
All right, so that was his answer. Okay, I'm gonna have to show you guys because I see a lot of you guys don't know what I've done, what I've shown. Guys, you're preaching to the choir. Listen, when I say reload, I'm not trying to get graphic with me because they're gonna take my video down, guys. You don't get it. You guys don't know what I go through with these kind of things. But I want this to be able to be heard, okay? I'm gonna show you this playlist, right? You saw where I went. I went to my channel. You go to playlist tab, okay? And then you go to don't mention the chasers playlist, okay? In my YouTube channel, I have at least like up to part 31, I think, part 31, and then yeah. No, actually, part 20, sorry. Part 20. Yeah, part 22, I think, or 23 was my last one. One of those was the last full episode. Oh, here it is. Part 22 was the last. It's an hour long. These are 2 minutes. These are just trailers. I had to move it to Patreon. Guys, you guys don't understand what I showed. I showed the whole history, the breakdown, every context. So I know what really happened. Today, we're doing a little review for the new people, because I need to just update you that like this is still going on while they're distracting us with other things. Everybody was like, oh, did you hear Kurimeo? Trump ended the war in one day. Trump came in office, he ended it in one day. He got peace in the Middle East in one day. I said, yeah, right. You really believe that? And look, how long he's been president? They still unaliving, okay, so let's say unaliving people. They're still unaliving people. They're still unaliving people. Right now, they're probably bombing somebody right now. But check out this series, guys, if you haven't. I'm trying to tell you. I'll show you how deep it gets. This was so controversial, these videos, man. Like, we had to move it to Patreon, and on Patreon, I was no holds bar. I was able to upload uncensored stuff, and it got even deeper on Patreon. Got even deeper. I did another like 10, 11 parts, 12 parts, something like that. That's on Patreon exclusively. So I have the Freeman speech. I have all that here. So you must have forgot that, everybody. So I'm not just speaking to one person, right? Like, don't think I'm picking on you. I'm telling everybody. Okay? I know I don't expect everybody to have watched all my videos, but I'm just letting you know. That's the whole point of today, right? Letting you know it's still happening right now, guys. I'm showing you. This interview is from 2 weeks ago, right? Like, this is still happening. All right, are we clear? If you want more deepness on this background of the whole conflict, go check out this series, guys. We good now? Evian said, I watched all those. Okay. You're not gonna mention, try not to mention them, guys. Like, we want the Chazars to not even know, you know what we're doing, because trust me, guys, you don't know.
Well, I've resisted the call from many that it's a genocide on the basis that it seemed to me that Israel, for a long time, I believed, had a fundamental right to defend itself, and that's what they were doing. I have to say, when I listened to Smodrich, one of the more right-wing of a very right-wing cabinet under Netanyahu, talking the other day, he was talking in clear genocidal language. It was unarguable. And when you look at what's happening on the ground in Gaza, I don't see any plan other than the apparent total disintegration of all infrastructure there and the killing of as many people as possible, all under the pretext that they say that they're only going after Hamas and doing so in as humane a way as possible. It just doesn't seem that what we're seeing on a daily basis and hearing on a daily basis represents that pretext at all. And I also see no end game. I don't understand what Israel's plan is here, other than what Smodrich says it is, which is to clear everybody out, which is that is genocide. If you eradicate a people from their home based on ethnicity, that is a genocide. So, all those who've been calling it that, and I've been resisting, I've now been saying I find it almost impossible.
All right. Now see what he's admitting it is? Piers Morgan, he just admitted it. He said it, all right?
To disagree now, given what we're witnessing.
Well, you've come a long way, Piers, and I admire you, and I respect that you have really changed your position on what's happening in Gaza.
See?
It's as I said, it's obvious. You can't really deny the fact that what's happening is a genocide. What's happening is an ethnic cleansing of an entire population. Are you still with me?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's undeniable. The mass starvation of children, the malnutrition that the children of Gaza are facing. We've just evacuated 5 children out of Gaza to Texas, actually, for treatment. And one of them really straight to the ICU from Gaza, malnourished, broken bones, amputated arm. It's horrific. I carried those children between my arms all the way from Egypt, first evacuated from Gaza to Egypt and then to the US. It's heartbreaking to see these children having to suffer that level of suffering for absolutely no reason. This is not a war about Hamas. This is not a war about, defending Israel defending itself. This is simply a clear ethnic cleansing. I am not a lawyer or an attorney to give a label for what's happening, but many of the historians, many of the lawyers have basically described what's happening in Gaza as a genocide. And in fact, the food distribution plan that Israel is enforcing and forcing upon humanitarian organizations today clearly reflects that this is basically an ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians. Having the Palestinian household or family members basically to go and pick their aid from a specific location that's highly fenced with checkpoints effectively. It's another reason for Israel to kidnap more Palestinians and for them to disappear forever. I still have many of my colleagues from Nasser Hospital have been kidnapped since the beginning of the war. These doctors have never come back. Dr. Hussam Abu Safia, he fought, for his patients until the last second. No one knows where his whereabouts. All the news indicates that he's being tortured in Israeli jails.
Wow.
Many, many amazing doctors had absolutely nothing to do with Hamas. Just disappeared. The targeting of journalists, the targeting of aid workers, the targeting of children. What does that have to do with Hamas? And again, as I said, if you cannot defeat Hamas throughout all this time, almost 16, 17 months, to me, that's the most failed military operation in history.
Well, it's clearly not working because the hostages haven't been released. They should be, absolutely should be, but they haven't been, which means the military operation by Israel's forces to secure their release just isn't working. This strategy just does not work. Listen, Dr. Nasser, it's great to talk to you. Thank you for the work that you do. I'm so sorry about the incredible loss to your family and your mother and your nephew and all the others that you've lost from your extended family in Gaza. My heart goes out to you and to your family. It's become an utterly horrific war, this, and it has to end. But I thank you for joining me again.
Yeah.
Para nosotros.
Yeah. Wow. So, you know, real life situations coming to a neighborhood near you. That's what most people don't understand.
Thank you, Piers.
Well, I'm going to be joined now by two people with very different views about the war, Professor Norman Finkelstein and Benny Morris, Israeli historian. Well, welcome to both of you. Benny Morris, my main question right now for Benjamin Netanyahu, I put it to him on X directly. And I said, if you're doing everything by the book and everything is justified and everything is legal and you're not committing any war crimes or any of these things, I simply asked him one simple question. If you're doing nothing wrong, let international journalists go in and see for themselves. And I think it is completely shameful that the Israeli government continues to stop international journalists from doing their job. And it's down to the individual risk assessment will be by the journalists and their companies. Now, it was put to me on 2-3 days ago by an IDF member that somehow this has been done for the safety of the journalists. It's not. It's complete nonsense. And that's not down to the Israeli government anyway to make that call. I mean, do you at least accept that it is wrong that journalists are not allowed in there?
All right, so literally, Piers Morgan, they don't allow any other journalists than their own people. They can be doing whatever they want over there. They banned everybody because they were getting, they were showing, people were showing what was going on. It banned everybody. And he's asking the Zionist guy here, like, what's up with that?
I completely agree with you, Piers. The government has made a terrible mistake in not allowing journalists in, and whoever dies there dies, but they should have allowed them in. But I would like to make a comment about what your previous guest was saying. He said he spoke about objectivity or something. The man is a total Hamas propagandist. Half the things he said were outright lies. Lots of doctors have been abducted and have disappeared is total nonsense. I know of 1 or 2 cases of doctors who were taken to an Israeli detention center. What happened to them afterwards, I don't know. I don't think they've been killed. I think they're under arrest for whatever reason. But
so they could have been abducted.
Many doctors have been. Many doctors.
You're basically agreeing with him, aren't you?
No, I'm not. I'm saying that he talked about.
You just said you know of some doctors who were detained. You no idea what happened to them.
I know of 1 or 2 doctors.
You're confirming his story.
No, I'm not. I'm confirming a small part of what is true. The rest is a lie, as is a large part of what he's saying. Had Israel wanted to kill all the Palestinians, that's what genocide actually means, there would have been many, many, many more deaths in Gaza. Each time Israel launches an air raid, we hear of the Palestinians saying 24 people have died, 30 people have died, and I'm sure many of them are civilians, but I'm also sure that the Air Force going in against these targets is attacking Hamasniks. We never hear from the Hamas how many of their people are being killed in these strikes. All we hear about and all we see on television is dead babies and dead women. They never show grown male, army-aged males being taken out of these ruins.
So his mentality, right? He said it's not the G word, genocide, until they're all gone. So until they're all gone, he won't call it that. So it don't matter if 150,000 or 50,000 or 200,000 out of a million are unalived. He won't call it that until they're all gone. Let's not call, like, is that really the definition? Is that the definition of that, the G word? Yeah. So he's over here babbling like they always do, right? Justifying But he literally confirmed the doctor's story about doctors being detained, and he's like, I don't know what happened to them, but they probably in arrest. They probably don't know. He don't want to say.
And the Hamas uses these things systematically. The schools, the hospitals, various so-called safe compounds to hide in.
But look, out of interest. All right, but Benny Morris, when you hear someone like Smodrich last week talking about the campaign to just clear everybody out,
he's disgusting. You don't have to convince me. He's disgusting.
Right, but so my question for you, but my question for you though is this. All right, he's disgusting. What he said was disgusting.
Yes.
But what he said was also genocidal. Whereas you do not believe it's genocide that's going on, he clearly is talking in a way which made me believe that actually maybe the intention is genocide. It may not be the death of absolutely everybody, but it means killing a lot of Palestinians and kicking the rest out of the area. And that is a genocide.
Yep.
No. Genocide is something which is top-down government policy and carried out systematically. That's not what is happening. He is definitely, some of his speeches are genocidal. I don't know what he means exactly. And there are other ministers who speak like him, and they shouldn't be doing that. And they may even have a genocidal mentality, but they do not control government policy, and they do not control what the army is doing. That's done by the generals, and unfortunately, in my mind, by a man called Netanyahu, who's totally corrupt and incompetent.
He just admitted all those people they might have some G-word mentality. Just admitted it.
Yeah, okay, we bring in Norman Finkelstein.
It's got nothing to do with, but it's got nothing to do with genocide.
Well, I think you're getting perilously close to agreeing with me. Norman Finkelstein, I mean, the bottom line is, if it sounds from the rhetoric like a genocide, if the actions on the ground are becoming increasingly genocidal, if there's no other plan being put out there for what happens to Palestinian people other than many more will die and the rest will be thrown out of Gaza, I don't know what else you end up calling this. And, you know, I listened to that doctor. I didn't hear somebody that I felt was a Hamas sympathizer or propagandist. He went out of his way to say he wasn't.
He's just a liar. He's a liar.
Well, he's a liar who's lost 78 members of his family. So, I mean, Norman Finkelstein.
Maybe it's true, and I agree, and I feel sorry for him, but they're caught up in the bad situation where Hamas controls the population and is willing to sacrifice as many civilians as they can to win world support.
Well, which is exactly what Israel's also seems like they're prepared to sacrifice. Norman Finkelstein.
Well, thank you for having me on the program, and I hope that you'll hear me out. Is it a genocide? Well, as you know, Piers, from the first time I appeared on your program many months ago, I said it was a genocide. I said it was perfectly obvious when October 9th, the then Defense Minister Gallant said, we're not going to allow in any food, fuel, water, or electricity. Well, for a hermetically sealed population, that's a genocide. When the head of state, Mr. Netanyahu, compared the current situation with Amalek and invoked the biblical reference, it was clear, as the Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem put it, that he was talking about genocide.
Yep.
Now, in the 19 months that have elapsed, there have been adjustments in Israeli policy due to external pressure. That's called politics. So when the external pressures escalated, they had to diminish the genocide. And then beginning roughly when Kamala Harris was nominated for president in the United States, and all the cameras switched to the American election, Mr. Netanyahu, who's very sensitive to and knowledgeable of the American media, he then escalated the genocidal assault on Gaza again. And then, as you remember, because I did several programs with you at that time, as you'll remember, every day there was another massacre. There were so many massacres, it was impossible to keep count, and it was impossible to remember. Now again, there was some
first massacre.
Some lessening.
The first massacre, which was launched by Hamas.
Okay. I've not forgotten it, Benny. But you have to remember manners. I'll remember the massacres, and you remember manners.
Oh.
I'm speaking now.
You got him.
So, there were times when Israel, as I said, escalated the genocide and then diminished the genocide. Now, let's talk about the responsibility and the mindset. You've mentioned Mr. Smotrich. I mentioned Mr. Netanyahu. There was also several others whose names have constantly come up. Obviously, Defense Minister Gallant, who was indicted along with Prime Minister Netanyahu by the International Criminal Court.
Uh-huh.
But it's not just the leadership. It's not just the leadership. The most recent poll showed that fully 1/2 of Israeli Jews, we're talking now about the population, fully 1/2 of Israeli Jews believe that Israel should conduct a genocide in Gaza. That's what the poll result showed. 82%.
That's a lie. That is a lie.
80, I know, Benny, everybody's lying.
There's
but
never been a
finish.
poll about supporting genocide. This is nonsense. You're purveying lies.
Okay.
Benny's he's an agent. He's a gatekeeper, and Jacob, he represents the mentality of most Zionists. That's how they are. He's there to be there to talk for them. He was chosen to go there and talk against Filkenstein, right?
Okay, Benny.
Is that poll, Norman? What is that poll? What is that poll, Norman? It seems a very important poll. What is that poll you're referring to?
It was a university, if my memory is correct, it was a University of Pennsylvania poll. It was reported everywhere. Benny Morris knows about the poll. He's fully informed of the poll, but he's doing his job as an official Israeli propagandist.
I have no job. I don't like this government.
Benny,
I'm not their spokesman.
You've reduced yourself. Mr. Benny, you've reduced yourself to the level of a Holocaust denier. It's a real shame that you have sunk so low. But allow me to continue. The poll showed that 82% of Israeli Jews, 82% support a forced expulsion from Gaza.
That's not the same as genocide. That may be true. That may be true, but that's not genocide. That's not genocide. What you said before about genocide is total nonsense.
He's letting him know 82% of Chazars want to move all Palestinians out of there, or completely out of Gaza. He said, that's not the G word. And you notice how he laughs every time. This is the attitude. This is what we like. I grew up, in Boston. There's a lot of Chazars. They would do that. Every time you put them on the spot, they start laughing at you with that smirk. Same smirk he got on right now. Because even if they exposing him, he don't care. He's just paid off. Like, he don't care. Like, it doesn't affect him. He's just there to be like he said, the spokesperson for the Chazar propaganda. That's what he just called him. Okay.
Total nonsense.
Piers, you're going to have to ask Benny Morris to please allow me to speak.
Well, Benny, I will let you respond to this.
You're taking up all the time, though.
Yeah, Norman, you must give him a chance to respond.
Okay, I will finish. I will finish. Then, one of the leaders of the opposition in Israel described Israeli soldiers as killing children as a hobby in Gaza. Now, yes, he took it back. He took it back after he came under ferocious attack. But he himself acknowledged, when I debated Mr. Morris about a year ago, and I said that Israel targets children, he laughed. He thought it was such a funny remark by me.
It's absolute
I'm wondering, After the
Why don't we
foreign
stick to some
doctors in
facts?
Gaza, after the foreign doctors in Gaza attested that the children were being shot in the head and the chest. And when one of the leaders of the opposition in Israel said that the Israeli
Piers,
soldiers
can I answer?
kill children
Yeah, I
as
must
a
let Benny
hobby.
respond, Norman. I must let Benny respond. Benny.
There has never been a poll asking Israelis whether they support genocide. This is a total lie, and the 50% figure is also something completely out of Norman Finkelstein's imagination, his twisted mind, actually. There is no targeting of children deliberately, and what this politician said, and he's actually a very clever politician and usually tells things straight and the truth, was a slip of the tongue, and he said, I made a mistake. I said the wrong thing, and I shouldn't have used that phrase, stupid phrase. Israeli soldiers do not target, as a rule, children. There may be, and I'm sure there are and have been, war crimes committed by Israeli soldiers and pilots, perhaps, in this war in the course of 19 months. But I don't think we should forget that Hamas is a homicidal, a homophobic, misogynist, totalitarian organization which tried to kill as many Israelis as they could, most of them civilians, on the 7th of August. And what befell Gaza as a result is revenge for that attack by the Hamas. And the Hamas said they would do the same thing again if they are revived and resuscitated as a leading organization in the Gaza Strip. And I think that's the objective of the Israeli army, to end Hamas rule and to end the Hamas as an organization in the Gaza Strip. And anybody normal who doesn't support Islamists, doesn't support anti-Semitism, doesn't support misogyny, doesn't support homophobia, should be against Hamas, which Norman Finkelstein apparently isn't.
Yeah, but I don't hear people supporting Hamas certainly in mainstream media or anywhere else. Everyone's of a unanimity that what they did was unconscionable and they should be held to account. The problem is that the strategy that the Israeli government
is...
Yes, I heard.
They still want to do and say
yeah, but
they
Benny,
want to do.
Benny, let's just assume, because they said it themselves, in fact, the spokesman said it after October the 7th, that if they can do it again and again, they will. So they want to get rid of all the Jews in Israel. Okay. That is Hamas.
And of the state of Israel. And of the state of Israel.
But the problem is, as I've always said from the start of this, what is a proportional response to what happened? And what is the end game? What does Israel actually want at the end of this? And I'm beginning to think they don't have any plan at all. That actually what they're hoping is that they can pursue the line of many of the more right-wing members of that cabinet. Maybe Netanyahu himself now has been introduced into this because he has no incentive to end the war, because the moment it ends, he'll be held accountable for allowing October the 7th to happen in the first place, which was hugely unpopular for him and the Poles with the Israeli people. But secondly, he's facing corruption charges in a criminal court the moment this is all over. There is no incentive for him to end it.
They allowed it, OTC 7, they allowed it to like, check out the Hazars series, guys. That's what I'm saying. Just like 9/11, right? Like, you need reasons to go to war, right? And when you got all the resources and financial powers to do it, you do it. And that's the society, the matrix we live in, guys. We've been living in that type of matrix for a while. Hundreds of years, not just recent. Okay? Problem, reaction, solution.
And so this carries on and on with more and more Palestinians being killed. And all right, you might have a belief that the IDF never deliberately target children, but they are deliberately and relentlessly targeting civilian areas in their estimation, going after Hamas. But in the process, they know they are going to kill on a daily basis dozens, if not hundreds, of innocent people as well. And that's been going on now week after week, month after month. And at some point, you surely have to concede that this strategy is not working. It's making Israel global pariahs. It's making Israel global pariahs. There is no evidence that Hamas is being dismantled. In fact, the opposite appears to be happening, where for every Hamas terrorist killed, they're apparently replacing them with multiple more people who share that ideology. The hostages are not being released. God knows how many of those hostages may be killed now with these intensifying airstrikes.
No,
Israel now says it's launching.
Can I correct
Israel
you?
now says, well, let me finish.
About the
Israel now says it's launching a massive new attack. Well, okay, bully for Israel, but actually none of this seems to be working. And so at some point,
can I correct
I
you?
say enough. Yes, correct me.
Okay, I understood that. Can I correct you on one small point? The Hamas kidnapped 251 hostages, most of them Israelis, some of them Nepalese, some of them Thai, on the 7th of October 2023. Of those, 177 were actually released as a result of the Israeli counteroffensive in interim arrangements.
Well, they were released by diplomacy, actually. They were released through diplomacy.
But the Israeli military pressure is what persuaded the Hamas, because they also.
So why is it not working now?
Why
isn't it working now?
It will work. I don't know. Firstly, there's only 20 alive Israeli hostages left in Hamas hands. I do believe that the government is incompetent in.
We don't know that. We know there are over 50. We know over 50 are not accounted for.
We know there's 20 live ones and assume 38 dead ones. That's what Israeli
but nobody knows for sure.
He got him babbling. We don't. He's straight babbling. The dude keeps rebuttaling him like, no, that doesn't work. No.
Okay, nobody knows for sure. The government now, which was incompetent and I think incompetently managed this war, that's why it stretched out for so long. Though don't forget, we also had a war with Iran and with Hezbollah, and we continue to have a war with the Houthis from Yemen. So it's not just been Israel focusing only on Gaza. But
but in the war, if I may say, before I go back to Norman, with the war with Hezbollah, that was a scenario where Israel, in terms of military operation, brilliantly targeted 3,000 Hezbollah terrorists in a way that begs the question, why could they not have done a similar operation on Hamas? And I've heard all the excuses and explanations and arguments, but in one case, Israel has now, since October the 7th, 2023, just launched endless strikes and assaults on civilian populations in Gaza, killing, we don't know how many, but we know it's many tens of thousands, including over 20,000 children in a population with 50% under 18. And in their offensive against Hezbollah, which was incredibly successful, they targeted 3,000 terrorists with pages, which have got explosives in. There's a massive difference in the way that Israel's gone about these two counter-terrorist operations, as they would put it. And I would argue the way they went after Hezbollah had global support in a way that the way they've gone after Hamas in Gaza is increasingly making Israel a global pariah. Norman, your response?
I agree with you completely, but there were two reasons for that. The first one is that the Hamas has systematically hidden behind civilians and in tunnels underneath civilian centers.
Are we having
a Norman respond.
Monologue?
Norman.
If your resume isn't getting...
Pretty good, interesting conversation I have. So basically, I think we can move on to the next video I have here. They're going to keep arguing. He's going to keep babbling, and he's gonna keep making so look like he admitted there at the end, guys. He said, okay, nobody knows for sure. They don't know what the plan is, and now they're trying to blame it on one guy, Netanyahu. Like he didn't have orders, like he didn't have people who put him in power. Like he hasn't been saying, like, come on, guys, like we don't fall for that stuff. That's what they do to people too. They always make you think it's one guy, and they go after that one guy. And let's like Diddy, right? Oh, let's go after or Einstein, right? Oh, let's go after these people like they're the one guys, but who do they work for? Yeah, exactly. So he's trying to, that's what they're trying to do now. That's their defense now. Oh, it's Netanyahu. We don't know what he's doing. Yeah, right. You guys, I'm not like, we know what, like, if you guys watch the series, you know what the Zionist plan and agenda was from the beginning. And the plan for greater Israel. We know the plan for greater Chazar. Okay? So it's not about one guy. We're gonna go on to Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera does a lot of good. You know, they got kicked out of Palestine. They got like straight up kicked out. They got targeted, got kicked out. They do a lot of good stuff. All right. From about 12 days ago. They say too little, too late. The sudden surge of the G word critique over Gaza. Now everybody wants to, are you feeling guilty now? What's going on?
More than 600 days into its horrific war on Palestinians in Gaza, even Israel's most loyal allies, from foreign governments to news organizations, have been forced to confront reality. From Berlin to London, Paris to Ottawa, support for Israel is turning into disapproval, verging on condemnation over the humanitarian catastrophe unfolding in the Strip. Starving Palestinians have been lining up for food aid supplied by an organization that is the brainchild of the American and Israeli governments and looks more like a PR exercise than a humanitarian response. The external political pressure, along with rising dissent within Israel over the Netanyahu government's waging of this war, is having an effect on the media narrative there and fracturing a consensus that goes all the way back to October 7th, 2023. Try as the Israelis might, it will take more than a trickle of humanitarian aid to silence their critics, more than propaganda to hide the war crimes it is committing.
All right.
And its genocidal way. European.
I can't put the music on, guys, so that's fun.
The chancellors. Caster, where he said.
Israel has been committing.
Yeah. Let's see if we can get.
Das Existenzrecht und die.
From Merz, of all people, it is truly too little, too late, and I await to see whether Palestinian solidarity activists, students who have been calling out this genocide and facing brutal policing, in some cases deportation. I look forward to Merz welcoming all those people back to Germany and telling them that they were right all along.
Chancellor Merz added Germany's name to a growing list of Western countries were against civilian suffering.
Having these big epiphanies that mass slaughter of Palestinians is wrong.
There's a great liberal centrist tradition of standing on the right side of history only when the relevant moment to do so has significantly passed. We are seeing that grand liberal tradition be repeated now by Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron, Mark Carney, and other leaders who are only willing to condemn, but indeed not stop, Israel's activities at this point. I think future-proofing of reputation to say, oh, but we did indeed speak up, might very much be in play here. But those of us who have been paying any attention at all for the last year and a half plus are all too aware that these very governments have been funding and ideologically enabling Israel's actions.
Throughout its war on Gaza, Israeli officials from Benjamin Netanyahu on down have routinely dismissed allegations.
War crimes inherently anti-Semitic. The anti-Semitic decision of the International Court in the H is a modern driver. That argument is more difficult to make now, since more and more of those accusations are coming from Israelis, including a former prime minister. What is it if not a war crime? Ehud Ol first made that argument in a liberal Israeli paper, Haaretz, before repeating it on CNN. Golan, a former army chief of staff turned opposition leader, is another who has strayed from the starvation of children. Wow. So these are talking about people who's exposing them, their own people.
And more common in the print sector.
More common in the print sector than the broadcast side. They are notable in that they reflect what is occurring politically. Almer is one of the earliest founders of Netanyahu's party, Liot. So he's known left-wing pro-Palestinian peace. He's the guy that carried out one of Israel's most atrocious wars on Gaza operation. Most atrocious, to see him now condemning what Israel is doing in Gaza as a war of annihilation, as genocide, it is extraordinary. It speaks basically of how far Israel has gone. This moment is ripe for the likes of Yair Golan and other opposition figures in Israel, because Netanyahu is facing increased pressure, and leaders around the world will be happy to scapegoat. See, Netanyahu scapegoat as the perpetrator. You see, scapegoat, like I was saying, of this genocide in Gaza, rather than face the reality that this was a genocide perpetrated against the Palestinian people by the state itself. And so this moment presents an opportunity to put all the blame on Netanyahu, both internally and internationally. All right? All right, guys? That's what's going on. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Trying to blame one person, right? Because now everybody, all of them got exposed. Israel is now panicking, realizing that their strategy of repeated atrocities to exhaust the global attention did not work. That's why you had saying our propaganda is collapsing. Our legitimacy is over. And you had Israel home saying, or HOM saying, that world is talking less about us and more about Gaza. And their solution is not to end the genocide, but to propagandize more, to whitewash the genocide even more, to double down on the falling strategy that didn't work. Without a doubt, there are media outlets and journalists who are reassessing their position regarding this war. And where is good example? What is good example? They're showing more pictures of what's going on in Gaza, speaking through the angle of starvation, referring to it more and more. Overall, however, Israel's media coverage that allows for empathy for Palestinians remains the exception, all right? Except them, not the rule. They don't do it in their country. There's still bias over there. You know, that's why they're letting you know.
600.
Desperate and violence. Politicians overseas out of salvage their legacies could be enough to save some of those lives, but as Israeli journalists well know, there will be no saving of reputations on the Israeli airwaves. The moral standing of news channels that too many citizens there still use as their primary source of information. If you're only consuming Israeli media in Hebrew, you will know less about what the Israeli army is doing in Gaza than probably any given citizen in the rest of the world. Listen, the Israeli media has been a collaborator with this genocidal mindset and actually promoting it, and by concealing the Holocaust of Gaza. Whoa, from the eyes of the Israeli public. When the day comes that the criminals responsible for this, the G word, will stand on trial, I think next to them on the bench, the Israeli media should be located. There's a reason that experts in genocide studies and humanitarians are using terms like final solution. Oh, kind of like showing this stuff. Oh no.
94% of all hospitals in the Strip have been damaged or destroyed. More than 1,400.
All right. Okay. All right. I mean, I don't know how much more I got to show. It's still happening right now. All right. I'm probably going to end it right there, guys. Again, check out don't mention the Chase Our series. Let me just show it one more time. If you want the whole background of the conflict, if you are new to my channel, okay? You can't mention the Chazars, especially when I was doing it. Like, maybe now everybody's trying to ride the bandwagon. Maybe won't mess with me in this video, maybe. Maybe they won't mess with me, threaten me, and take my video down and say you got hate. I'm just reporting, and I'm just sharing what everybody else in big YouTube channels are showing, right? So if you haven't checked out the series, go ahead. We got up to like part 34 or something like that, right? This one, the chase our job. Wow. When you want to talk about 9/11, yeah, that's a good one. That's on Patreon. That's like, man, that's deep. It gets deep. There's no way. They're involved in every way. Involved in every way. All right. Check out this series. I got the link in the chat. I'll put the link in the description of the video for the playlist. Catch up, get informed, know the whole context. If you want to have an opinion on it, at least know all the info, both sides of it, not just one side of it. Okay? And Martin Luther King Jr. once said, you know, it's not the bad people that make the world bad place. It's the good people that don't do anything. It's the good people that turn the cheek. It's the good people who don't say anything. That's what makes the world a bad place. Okay? It's in my heart to do this. Okay? My soul, my heart, for anybody. For you guys for being oppressed, for my people being oppressed, for anybody in the world being oppressed. That's humanity. That little bit of humanity that I have in me, that most high Hawa, that Hawa put in me, for me, give me the courage and wisdom to be able to do things like this. Okay? While we live our lives, a lot of things are happening right now, guys. Like, you know, we already know what's up. So just got to be aware of everything and know both sides of everything, and don't fall for everything. Don't fall for everything either. You know, discern, be smart. Appreciate you guys tuning in for this little reminder review. Kind of current events. That's what, you know, that's what literally is happening. There's no solution. No matter what they say in the news, there's no, they plan is clear. The whole world's seeing it. The plan is clear. We know now for sure. And nobody's doing nothing about it. And yeah, what is the future gonna say about us? And how is this gonna affect all of us if we allow it to continue like we just, you know? I know most of us don't have the power to do anything. Like, we're not the politicians, the presidents, the governments, but hopefully there's humanity and people in those positions. Yeah, so appreciate you guys tuning in. I might throw up another video later on, okay? Tune in for that. I might throw up another video like that, another little reading. Hope you guys enjoyed the videos. And shout out to everybody suffering and whatever occupation in the world and whatever genocide's going on in there. You know, may the most, may Hawa protect the good ones, you know, the righteous ones, may his people, may Hawa protect his people for sure. All right. Okay. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. All right. Food for thought. Food for thought. We're going to go out with Netflix. All right. Appreciate you guys. Much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Hawa.
Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad, never good, fill my head full of every single doubt, yeah. Please say any negative thoughts, I pop off when I hear people say I cannot. I get off to the thought of proving everyone wrong, I won't stop to the top, so you better back off and get lost. I'ma stay loud, stay proud, never running out, never heading south. I'll be spreading out, call it word of mouth, can't put me down, I'll be getting loud. You can have it douse, not what I'm about, have your cloud, it be raining now. I keep making sound, go another round, I'm legend bound, can't stop me now. You don't wanna fuck with me, a slow burn like a disease. Just tell me that I can and I'll show you things that you couldn't believe. Just tell me that I can. Just tell me that I can. Just tell live, cause I just wanna hear it out your mouth, yeah. Give me fuel, it's a tool that I use to go ahead and run my mouth, yeah. I take shots, I take loss, I make shots, I miss lots. That's how you get big boss, you get yachts, you swing lots and pop off a big shot. I ain't done chasing, got big dreams, bigger things, impatient. Who's at the top think they need replacement? Who's at the top think I'm gonna erase them? Face it, I don't give up quick, I don't give up shit, I won't give up this. Cause I know that I want it, know that I'm on it, I'll make it, I promise.